All right, hello everyone. I see some comments already asking how you ask questions. We'll get to that in just a second. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the Orange County Library System Ask the Literary Agents panel. I'm going to bring the agents on in just a second, but a couple things before I get started. You can go to find out about all of our writing programs, go to ocls.info/writerscorner. And you'll see that at the beginning of the video and also at the end. And then also if you could fill out the survey at some point today, that would be really great. And I'm dropping that link in the chat comments now. So I'm going to ask for questions. So if you already asked a question, I might not see it. And just wait until we get asked for questions, and then you'll be able to do that. So, but right now I'm going to bring on all the literary agents. I've got Jennifer and Alex and Michelle and Eric. Hello. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Actually, I'm going to make it look like this so we can see a little bit more of your faces. All right, so I'm Sarah. I work for the Orange County Library System. I'm also an author, and I've worked in the publishing industry in a couple of different roles. And I'm going to have each of the agents introduce themselves. And when y'all introduce yourself, could you also include what it is that you represent, what genres you represent? So Jennifer, go ahead and go first.
Okay, I'm Jennifer March Soloway. I'm an associate agent with the Andrea Brown Literary Agency. I represent picture books, both authors and illustrators, middle grade, young adult, and some select adult projects that I really love a good thriller and a good horror.
Hi, I'm Alexandra Weiss. I go by Alex. I'm an associate agent with the Jennifer Chiara Agency. And I represent fiction and nonfiction picture books, middle grade, young adult, and graphic novels. And I'm also open to some select adult work as well.
I'm Michelle Richter from Fuse Literary. I'm an agent, and I represent women's fiction, contemporary romance, crime of all sorts, adult and YA, and a little bit of contemporary YA.
And I'm Eric Smith. I'm an agent with PS Literary. I work on young adult books, genre blending, literary fiction, and then all kinds of nonfiction, cookbooks, memoir, pop culture history books, essay collections, etc. And are we going to talk about the fact that like Jennifer has like a Zoom perfect background in her house and like from my bathroom, and I'm just very jealous.
Jennifer, her trick is she just moved, and so all the walls are bare.
Yeah, we moved right before lockdown, so yeah, there's no paint, there's nothing up on the walls, we have no furniture. I'm sleeping on a mattress on the floor. It's probably too much information.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today, and I'm really excited that y'all came on. And for anyone who doubts the power of Twitter, I met all of these lovely people first through Twitter. Yep. So that's pretty awesome. All right. So the first question that I have for y'all is, when you're reading submissions, what are some of the most common mistakes that you see writers make in their submissions?
Do you mean with the query letter or the first pages or just open-ended?
Yeah, open-ended, either query letter or first pages.
Not following instructions. I always want sample pages. They leave the sample pages off. They don't describe the book. I want to know what the book's about. So that's a huge one.
Yeah, occasionally I'll see really long query letters that explains, it dives into maybe the themes or why they wrote this book, but I don't get a lot of information about what it actually is about and what makes it unique.
Yeah, I feel like common mistakes for me, it sounds silly, but like I see a lot of query letters where the author is like talking smack about other books. And
yes.
I'm not a fan of that, especially when it happens and I'm like, oh, I know that particular writer. This isn't a good look for anybody. And then when you can tell maybe the author isn't super familiar with what they're writing. If I get pitched this is my debut young adult novel, finished at 300,000 words, then I know maybe they're not really paying attention to what's on the bookshelves and everything like that. And that's more of a mistake as a whole for the book. It's a nice red flag for me as the agent.
Or just to carry on that theme, when someone says there's no book at all like mine, unique, there are no comps at all. And even if we are all looking for that new unique idea, but we're also wanting to know who are the people who are going to read this book.
Yeah.
And so it might not be a spot on perfect comp, but just to have a sense of like people who enjoy this book will like my book, because we're all trying to find an audience for your story.
Or all their comps are by dead people.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
All their comps are by dead people.
Yeah, or they're like huge bestsellers, like Harry Potter meets Hunger Games, something like that.
Yeah.
The other thing I always have to laugh is when they address me and they're talking about, they say that there's something about me, but it has nothing to do with me. It's completely there. It's obvious that they've written a query letter to many other agents, and they'll say, oh, you have so many best-selling clients, and I don't yet, but not yet. So that's always something but I'm also willing to overlook it. And I'm just going to speak for me. I know a lot of people have problems with misspelling names. And I have a weird name. I have like 3 names. Like, do you call me Miss March Soloway? Do you call me Soloway? Does it have 2 L's, 1 L? I actually am pretty forgiving about that. So what I care most about is the pages and a great pitch and a great story that pulls me in.
Yeah.
What if they called you like Eric, though? Or if they're like, dear Eric?
I would be honored if they called me Eric. And then I would know that we're up against each other. And I like Eric, though.
You brought up a good point, though, when you were talking about like the pasted pitches and everything, which, like, for the most part, I think are fine. But I think some writers worry about having to personalize those query letters, and like, you don't force it. I don't feel like you have to force it in there. Because not everybody's very online the way some of us are,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I agree, and I don't need a personalization. If you've got a terrific pitch and great opening pages, if you raise a question in my mind that I just need to know the answer, I'll stay up till 3 in the morning to read it.
All right, that was great. We already have some questions rolling in, so feel free to drop your questions now and I'll start asking them. But I also have questions in case we run out of viewer questions as well. So let's see. If an agent and writer decide to work together, what typically takes place in the post-query world? What should be expected?
I mean, it varies, right? Like it depends on the projects, sometimes you get that magical unicorn book in where it needs like very little work and you're just like, all right, let's go. Let's start pitching it around. But usually you work on the manuscript a little bit with your agent, you polish it up, you make sure it's ready to go. You spend some time talking about what the submission process is going to look like. You talk about the editors you think will like this book. Sometimes the author is pretty savvy with publishing, but not always, and that's not necessary. But if you are, sometimes you'll share who your wish list people are. And then you get ready to get that book out, pitch it about.
Yeah, I also, very similar. I also make sure to cover like communication styles at that point too, of like, how often do you want to hear from me? Like if a rejection comes through, do you want me just to sum it up? Do you want to see the whole thing? Kind of establishing what the author feels comfortable with.
And to add to that, sometimes that changes. Like sometimes my clients want to know right away, tell me. And then if we get a bunch of passes, they're a little hard to take. Mm-hmm. And so maybe tell me at the end of the month, or maybe just hold off a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean,
Go ahead, Michelle.
I was going to say you've covered everything I would. Yeah, it really depends client to client. Some people I'm Facebook messaging with every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Some people I'm talking to every few months because, they're off in the writing trenches. So it really depends.
Yeah.
I think every author has different needs too.
Yes.
Most importantly for me, I want to have really good open communication. Like, it's okay if we're not in touch for a few months, but I just want to know that we're not in touch because it's not that they're not afraid to talk to me or anything. I want us to just have a really good conversation and very good open communication.
Yeah, and that's a good point you just brought up there too, because like, you know, in my writing life, I hear from my author friends who are like, oh, I'm afraid to bring this up with my agent. I don't know if I should bring this up with my agent. You bring everything up with your agent.
Yeah.
That's your agent's job, is to hear that stuff.
Yeah, I don't want anyone to be afraid. Yeah. And I have the same thing, Eric. I have a lot of author friends who are just afraid to talk to their agents, and that's absolutely what I don't want.
Yeah, it's a danger sign.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Let's see. Let's see. Sorry, I'm scrolling through. So personally, how would each of you describe your communication and also your editorial styles? This question is from Joel.
I adapt it to each client, and I tend to go through the manuscript and put comments throughout. I'm not going to copy edit it. I'm not going to tell them they have to change it. It's a suggestion. It's a conversation. And yeah, it's individualized.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It definitely varies person to person. You know, some of my authors, like you were saying earlier, how you talk to them on Facebook Messenger all day. I have authors who I talk to all day in Twitter DMs. Others who are just like, let me know when something happens, and that's kind of it. I do send like monthly emails to like all my clients just to be like, do you need to check in? Do you need to have a talk? Let me know. And that helps keep me in touch with those who are just like, don't talk to me unless something happens.
Yeah, it definitely varies. As far as editing goes, again, it kind of depends on what the manuscript needs. Some need a little bit more editing, so that can take some time here and there, but yeah, it really kind of depends. And when I send over edits too, I always explain, these are suggestions. I want to hear your thoughts. You know, nothing is final. If anything, I just hope it, you know, maybe some of my suggestions might inspire something else.
Yeah, that's kind of, when I first started agenting, I was assisting Laura Rennert, and she has an approach that I'd kind of used when I was in grad school and everywhere else, but she articulated in a way that I love. And that is that every negative is actually positive. Anything that's quote unquote not working is actually an opportunity to make the manuscript better. And that is how I approach working editorially with my clients. I think revision is magical. I have seen horrendous first drafts turn into bestsellers, and I believe that everyone can, like, writing is a craft and a skill, and it's something that you can work on and improve. So I love to work editorially with my clients, and I, like Michelle, I don't necessarily do comments in the draft. I usually tend to write very long-winded letters to my clients, which I've now realized sometimes are overwhelming. So, and I always start out with a lot of praise. I think it's just as important to know what is working in a draft as well as what's not working, because sometimes when you're really close to it, especially if you're frustrated or it's not going well, sometimes I feel like nothing is working. And so I always try to point out what I love about the manuscript and why we're working together. And then in terms of my communication style, I try to be very transparent. I try to share everything. I'm personally available by text or by Twitter DM or by email and by telephone. I'm not on Facebook, but I, try to be very open and accessible to my clients. I'm not doing monthly emails, and I'm like, Eric, maybe I should.
That's a good idea.
I don't do that either.
I try to be in touch with everybody, but I'm not doing like monthly. Yeah, I try to be in touch with people as I think they need it too. I have some clients who will tell me, I just need a break. I just need to go deep into my manuscript, and I'll come back when I'm ready. Yeah. And so I try to very much respect that, but also check in if I haven't been in touch for a while.
Is that Augie?
Yeah, that's my dog. The corgi will be making an appearance in the background.
Okay, so if an agent asks for more pages, how long should one wait before sending a polite nudge?
I would say 2 months.
Yeah.
Give us 2 months.
Yeah, I feel like most agents say that, right, on their submission guidelines.
Yeah.
We'll get back to you in 6 to 8 weeks. I say nudge away, you know, like I feel like that's like 10% of our job, probably more.
But this is for a requested manuscript, like if
they've requested more pages.
Yeah, so I am definitely slower in that regard, because if I really like something, I want to spend time with it and really read it. And I'm finding I will even respond and say it's going to be 8 to 12 weeks before I get back to you, and it's not you, it's me. And usually when people have to wait longer to hear from me, it's because I do really like it and I am really considering it. Anything that I can let go quickly, I do, because I want people to be able to find someone else.
All right, cool.
And I apologize in advance for everybody. I've still got your manuscript. I'm sorry, I'm behind.
Oh, I'm behind too.
I think we're all behind.
I read client manuscripts before potential clients, so.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure your clients appreciate that.
They seem to.
All right, so is there a special mechanism for publishing under a pen name? Can confidentiality be maintained even in the query letter?
I mean, we're gonna need to know your real name for the contracts and getting you paid eventually, you know, like, yeah.
I mean, we need to know who you are at some point.
Yeah, I write under a pen name, and that's why I just chose Sarah as my name today there, because people would be confused by who I am either way. But even my query letter, I signed it Sarah Fisk writing as Sarah Nicholas.
Yeah, I've had people submit to me like that too.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to sign the contract with your real name. So at some point, you're going to have to disclose your real name.
There will be people who know you.
I mean, your publisher's not going to out you, you know, but they will know who you are. And they will want an author photo.
Mm-hmm. All right. In the first 5 to 10 pages of query, I think they might mean the first 5 to 10 pages of manuscript. Hopefully the query is not 10 pages long. What exactly are you looking for? Voice and writing style, or some sort of hook or inciting incident within the first number of pages?
Well, for me, because I do a lot of crime fiction, I'm looking for a body in the first 5 to 10 pages. So I am looking for that inciting incident. If it's women's fiction, that's different. I mean, I'm still looking for voice either way.
I think within those first few pages, I'm just looking to make an emotional connection with the character and to really feel like I want to know more and I want to keep going. So that's always important for me.
Yeah, it's less about the amount of pages, like 5 to 10, and that as it is about, like, I want to care within that first chapter about who I'm, getting to hang out with. That's really all it is.
Yeah, I think when you're starting a book, you're making a commitment of your time to that book. And so you want to enjoy it. And for me, I'm always looking for a question to be raised in my mind. And it might be, why does this person feel this way? It doesn't have to be like, is there a dead body? And then what happened? Although I do love that. But yeah, I think looking for a question that's raised in my mind where I want to know the answer, and also where I feel some kind of connection to the character and enjoy the writing, where I want to keep reading, something that's going to pull me in.
All right. I'm working on a chapter book about a neurodiverse boy. How do I include cute graphs, tables, /graphics from his POV? I'm assuming the person isn't an illustrator.
Oh, you can put in illustrator notes.
Yeah, that's what I would recommend, is just in parentheses somewhere on the side, or just mention an art note.
All right. Can you give pointers on query letters? For picture books. In some formats, lots of questions are asked, and when it comes to the query portion. Oh, so if you're submitting on Submittable, I'm assuming some people have extra questions. I think that might be what they mean.
So do you mean like Query Manager, the form?
Yeah, that's what it looks like. But so pointers on query letters for picture books is the real question.
I'll say that I get a lot of query letters where the query letter's longer than the picture book. like the picture book's only 300 words and the query letter is 3 pages. When I get a picture book, I'm going to read the picture book. So what I suggest is just have a really great log line that explains what your picture book is about, because we're going to read the whole book in that case.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say the same thing, is that I'll get queries that are longer than, it takes me longer to get through the query than it does the manuscript.
All right, Lauren Grace says, hi, can you take us through your thought process when you receive a submission that you really like and you're considering? What happens between you reading it and then contacting the author?
So it depends on, so if it's picture book, so if I get a picture book query and I love the manuscript, I want to see more samples. So I'll ask for 2 or 3 more. They don't have to be perfectly polished, but I want to know that you've got a few books that are ready in the pipeline in case we can't sell that first one. And also that you have plenty of ideas, because picture books are very competitive and we might not be able to sell the first one or even the second, even the third. So that's very important for me. With a novel, I will read the entire novel and really think about it. I often research the prospective client just to see if I can get a sense of who they are, what they're doing, what they are like online, their personality, and then I will make a phone call and also see if it's a good fit and talk to them about their goals and talk about my editorial style and what they're looking for and do we mesh well. And it's always tricky because, you know, I've read your book and I love your book, and then we talk for, you know, an hour or two, and then boom, we're gonna get married. We don't get to date. So I always really want it to be right. And in fact, this just happened to me recently. I talked to a prospective client who had not been querying at all, very new, and I love their work, but I think that it's important for everyone to really explore their options and to query different people and talk to different people, and not just sign with the first person because they're offering. And so I always tell people to take 2 weeks to decide, to let everyone know that they've received an offer. And if they want to work with someone else, you know, it's fine with me. I really want them to have the best success that they can have, and we can still have coffee. It's all gonna be great. And same with this person that I even just spoke with. I want them to make sure it's right because, like I said, we're gonna get married and hopefully work together for a long time. And I don't wanna be in a bad relationship. And hello, Lauren, it's good to see you.
Yeah, you kind of nailed it right there. Yeah.
All right. I got a question on Twitter about how do I ask a question. So if you're actually asking, if you're watching in the embedded window in Twitter, you want to click through to YouTube. That's the only way you're going to be able to ask a question. The chat window shows up when you go to youtube.com. And the same on Facebook. If you're watching embedded in Facebook, you want to make sure you click on through to YouTube so you can ask a question. All right. I love this question because I have a feeling I know the answer, and I'm looking forward to y'all dispelling some writer anxiety. How much do comp titles factor into the decision to request more pages?
For me, not at all.
I love comp titles. I'm obsessed with comp titles. I always want them. If all their comp titles are books I hate, then I probably don't want that book. If it's all comps that I love and I think they're actually using them well, that may make me request them faster, right? But they also need a good query, and it needs to tantalize me.
Yeah, I like good comp titles. It tells me that you're potentially really well read in that category that you're writing in. You know, when I see you naming YA authors who aren't like blockbuster bestsellers, or when I see you naming literary fiction people that, you know, aren't like household names, like that catches my attention pretty quickly. And then, you know, it can also just let me know that the style of writing isn't going to be for me. You know, like you say that your sci-fi novel is perfect for people who like Douglas Adams. I hate Douglas Adams. I don't think he's funny. So it wouldn't work for me, you know? So like comp titles can really, they can help you. And they help the agent who's considering.
Yeah, I find them helpful if you know they're wildly off, or I know we mentioned this earlier, but they're only like huge blockbuster ones. That might throw me off. But you know, if they're ones that I wouldn't necessarily use to pitch, I wouldn't count it against it. It wouldn't like necessarily impact if I request more.
Right.
It just might mean that, you know, we need to do more research, and it could also be a sign that maybe you don't know the genre that well. But for the most part, like if it's, you know, they're slightly off, or maybe you don't have more than one or something, I guess it's not hugely important for me.
What
You know,
if a
I feel like
query
writers-
doesn't have any?
Well, I'm going to just add, even if I hate all the books, which I would never admit to anyone that I hated them, because it's a very small industry. But if I love the pages but hated the comps, it's not a deal killer for me. Really, it comes down to the pages for me. And if they don't have any comps at all, it's not a deal killer, but I really do want to know, just like everyone else said, that you're reading and that you know the market and you understand who's going to want to read your book.
Yeah, and one thing that hangs up writers a lot when it comes to comp titles, and I've seen this a lot at conferences, people get worried that they're not finding comps that feel like their book, you know, and worry less about that and think more about, like, my book is perfect for readers who like this author and that author because of elements you can find in their book, you know, like the humor found in so-and-so, you know, the world building crafted by this author. You know, it doesn't just have to be, my book is just like this book, because it's kind of bad.
Agree. Yeah, we don't want the book that's just like the other book.
Yeah.
That book exists, and it's
I love an X meets Y kind of comp, like the humor of Lisa Lutz meets, you know, Sue Grafton or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
All right. How important is an online presence if you are a nobody pitching a nonfiction book /essay/memoir?
For nonfiction, I think it's more important than fiction, actually.
Yeah, I agree. Some of my authors who write nonfiction don't have a huge online presence. Like, they don't have a giant Twitter following. They don't have a blue check mark or any of that stuff. But their platform is in publication, you know, so they're regularly publishing articles, they're regularly publishing essays. So don't feel like you're a nobody if you don't have a bunch of Twitter followers, because you can build that online presence in another way. You know, like if you're planning to pitch a memoir and an essay collection, you're probably writing a lot of essays about a particular thing. Pitch those essays around. That'll help you build your platform. You're not a nobody.
Yeah, I think your platform is also part of your like authority. So like, what are you an expert in? Like, does what you're writing about, is it something that is it your job? You know, if you're writing about space, are you an astrophysicist? Like, that's part of your platform. It doesn't necessarily have to be that you have a huge online platform, but if you can back it up, for sure, that's also going to be hugely important.
Okay. I had a question. Where'd it go? Okay. I think it got deleted. Oh, no, my comments just jumped. 1 second. Sorry. Sometimes the comments jump and I can't tell where we were. All right. For a writer who fell into using a Vanity Press, is there a possibility to submit to you a revised/improved version of the story for consideration?
I think it varies agent to agent. I don't, you know, take on self-published projects. I know some people do.
Same. I would take the next book from you, but not that same book.
Yeah.
Same at this point. Yeah, I think there was an earlier time where it worked, but right now I think we're looking for your next book.
All right. If an agent doesn't list an anticipated time frame, I'm assuming this is about queries, in which to hear back from them, how long should you wait until you assume it's a no, or is it appropriate to send a follow-up email?
It depends.
Yeah. So we have guidelines. Yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
I respond to every query. Sometimes I'm fast, sometimes I'm slow. I'm faster since I got Query Manager, but manuscripts can take me a long time. But some agencies are like, no response means no. That's not how I roll. So I think you have to check the agency website.
Yeah, don't be afraid to follow up and nudge. You know, like we do it all the time with editors. No one goes to book jail for sending a nudge. Like it's fine.
I do see.
But be polite when you nudge. Like, be gentle.
Yeah.
We're nice people, and we want to work with nice people.
I do see sometimes agents will post on Twitter, like I'm caught up on queries through this date, and so you know if you sent before that date. And so check them out on Twitter because some of them do that. So, what is the response? This is good, but I just didn't feel the spark/connection, or I didn't fall in love with it mean in response to Foals, and how do you proceed?
Oh, that's such a hard question. I mean, like I don't know. I like it when I give a feedback that's along those lines, and the writer asks me, well, you know, what could I do to fix this, or do you have any suggestions, or did anything spring to mind? I never mind that question. Like, the worst thing that's going to happen is an agent's not going to answer you, but they might have something to share.
So I'll answer that because I say that a lot. I mean, basically, I can only take on so many clients, and I really, really want to love your work because I'm going to read it multiple times, and I'm going to pitch it, and I'm going to, you know, I'm going to put my heart and soul into your work. And so I really, really want to love it. And if I don't love it, it doesn't mean that it's not a fantastic book. There are a lot of good books out there that I don't like, and you want someone who wants to love your book and loves your work. And if it's not me, then that means I'm not the right fit for you.
Yeah, exactly. It means that it's not right for me. It doesn't mean that it's not right for nobody. So keep plugging.
Yeah.
All right, Charlotte asks, how did you get started in agenting?
Yeah, well, I worked at a publishing house for about 6 years. I did social media and digital marketing and all kinds of, like, a million jobs, because that's what you do when you work at a publishing house. And I wanted to be selfish and work just on the books I wanted to work on. So I applied for an agenting job after several years in publishing. It's not a very glamorous story.
Mine's pretty similar to Eric's. I worked at St. Martin's Press for 8 years in editorial and decided to jump to the other side. And it's been great.
I went to school for creative writing, and our school had quite a few classes on publishing. So I took every single one that I could, and I ended up getting an internship with our agency, and I assisted and interned for Jennifer for a few years, and joined as an agent when it felt ready.
And I had a completely different trajectory. I worked in marketing and PR, in banking, financing, and toys, but always kind of aimed at kids, except for the banking, I guess. And then I got an MFA in creative writing with an emphasis in young adult literature. And I got a chance to work for Laura Rennert at Andrea Brown and just fell in love with every part of agenting. And after I assisted her for about 3.5 years, I was promoted to become an agent. And it's been fantastic. It's my dream job.
Yeah, I was going to say, I hope Jennifer mentions the toy industry. We talked about that at the conference. I was like, that's fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to be the toy inventor liaison for my company. And so what people would do is toy inventors across the country would pitch me their ideas. And then because I was in-house, if I liked their idea, then I would turn around and pitch it to our company to see if they liked it. And then if our company agreed, then then I would turn around and negotiate the deal for our company.
Wow.
So it was really fun. And so when I started agenting, it didn't even click on to me that I was like, oh, wait a second, I've done this before. Yeah.
All right, Aaron asks, what recommendations would you make to a first-time author pitching to an agent at a conference?
That's a good question.
Try and
it will
practice.
Be a little while.
I would say try and practice with another writer. Sometimes there are people who help you prep before you pitch with the agents. So you go through your pitch, get comfortable with it, take a breath. Remember, we want to find good things. We don't want to tell you no.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we're there to hear your story and to get to know you, even if it's just for 10 minutes. Just remembering to take that breath, drink water, and practice that pitch.
Yeah, and I was going to say leave room to talk.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many conferences I go to for the in-person pitch, and the person just talks the entire 10 minutes, and I don't get to ask any questions about the book, and then they just get up and they leave. So leave room to talk.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
an opportunity lost.
Yeah, come with a few questions that you might want to ask too. That's always helpful.
The other thing I would say is that try pitching to someone who has not read your work, who doesn't know what it's about, and then ask them if they can explain to you what your book is about. And if they do and they get it, then you've got a great pitch, or it's on its way at least. And a lot of times during pitches at conferences, people will start to summarize to me and just start to give me a synopsis, and I'm always like, don't tell me the ending because I'll want to read the whole book. So I agree, like figure out like just maybe 1 or 2 minute pitch, or even 30 seconds, whatever it is, and leave time for us to really talk because we want to get to know you. And I do sign people from conferences that I've met at conferences, and sometimes it isn't when I first meet them. Sometimes it's 3 years later. I meet a lot of people who are on my radar, and they even know who they are. I will tell them, you're not there yet for me, but you're on my radar. I think you're on your way, and I want to be there when you're ready. So.
All right. Yeah. I always tell people to use a short pitch, because even if the agent is like not interested in your story at all, then you still have the next couple of minutes just to get, advice or feedback or whatever from someone in the industry, and that's valuable. Related to that, Becky asks, what do you see filling the void of in-person book events? Any favorites aside from this lovely?
I mean, I'm doing some pitches that I would have taken at conferences. I'm doing online. Like Thriller Fest is doing their Pitch Fest online. I don't know if Writer's Digest is too, but a lot of the cons are doing online events. But, hit our slush. It's there all the time. It's free.
And it works.
Yeah. And there's Twitter events too, like, Pit Mad and Pit Dark and, of course, Pitch Wars. Sarah knows I love Pitch Wars.
Yeah, stuff on Twitter. I do. A lot of times I'll do a conversation with Tara Lazar on just, interview back and forth. And then I've also done PB chat where people will fire stuff at me. I can't take DMs on Twitter. I know, Eric, you're so good and kind, but
I need to turn them off.
It's too much for me. But people, you can tweet to me. I'm available on Twitter, and I like to interface with people. And I love writers. I want you guys to succeed.
All right. How has COVID-19 affected your wish list? For example, do you want more uplifting books, or are you still okay with darker material?
That's a good question. I'll jump in. I love dark YA, and I love dark stories. I like to be scared. I do think that a lot of people are looking for sort of more uplifting stuff, and it's been that way for a while. However, I'm still open to dark. I really love getting scared. I find it like escapism fiction is really fun. What I am not interested in right now is pandemic fiction, because I am living this horror and I don't need to read it. But that's just me.
Well, it's not just you. Dystopian books are not selling to publishers right now. They're like, it's too much.
But I'm getting even picture books about the pandemic. I mean, I'm getting a lot. I'm getting pandemic. I'm living it. I live in San Francisco. We have to wear masks. I mean, it's bad here. I just don't want to read it.
Yeah. I mean, I still want to see some dystopian books because, like, I like seeing the terrible world reflected in a way that gives me hope that it's going to get better.
Sure.
So pitch me those kind of books. One of my authors had a pandemic book come out 2 months ago, so he's having a time. But I'm still up for anything because whatever I sell now is going to come out in like 2 years, and hopefully it'll all be over.
Yeah, I love dystopian. Don't get me wrong. I just like specifically about the current pandemic right now.
Oh yeah, no, hard pass. I'm good.
Yeah. Especially picture books.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, what is the process like for one of your authors starting a new project after selling or shelving a book?
Writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
by writing it. Sometimes
Well,
I'll run
I think the question is like, do you kind of help them decide? Do you help them shape their projects, that kind of thing?
Sometimes, you know, they'll like run the idea by me and say like, hey, this is the new thing I'm thinking of doing. What do you think? And we'll talk about it, but there's not much else I can do until they have like the finished book for me to read, you know?
Yeah, I'm always willing to be a sounding board.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
I will say whenever I was ready to write my next book, I sent my agent 9 ideas and just like short pitches for each. And she responded, not that one, but all the others are fine. Thank you. I love my agent. Eric loves my agent too. But
Yes.
I was like, oh, that didn't help very much. All right. This is an interesting question from Michael. Do you feel you are helping to shape the industry at the mercy of the industry or some sort of blend?
Probably a blend, right?
Yeah.
Like, if publishers don't want to buy my books, I'm going to go get a new job, you know?
Yeah, I think so. I think Eric's nailed it. Like it's in some cases we're at mercy of the market, but however, if we find that one great thing that no one's thought of before and it's just fabulous, you know, that changes the market.
Mm-hmm.
And we love to read it.
I mean, I think I try to seek out a certain type of writer who's trying to make a change in their genre. And so by going after those people and getting them deals, I'm trying to help shape the industry, but I mean, I'm not, you know, all powerful. Alas.
Yeah. This is not an all-powerful being. I'm talking to you in front of my bathroom. Like this is
Augie is the all-powerful being.
Yeah.
All right. If you don't love an author's second or third book, how do you approach selling that project? Or I guess really, do you sell that project?
Oh. I mean, I don't, right? Like if you don't love the book and you don't think you could sell it, usually you tell them like, oh, you know, this might not be for me. You might be a better fit for my colleague, or, you know, like, it's not like we just drop you and you're gone. Like I have clients that have left and I've given them advice on who to go to next.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say if it's like multiple books that are, you know, that they're bringing and you're just not clicking with any of them, it might be that either you've worked with them for a while and their, you know, writing has just naturally changed, or what they want to write isn't quite within your wheelhouse, or maybe what you want to represent has changed. There's lots of things that can happen, but it kind of depends on the situation.
Yeah.
Okay, from Sunny, how do you feel about multi-genre authors? And I actually had a similar question to this. So as a follow-up, what would you do if one of your authors wanted to write a book in a genre that you don't normally represent?
I'm working with one of my colleagues on a writer like this. He mostly writes sci-fi fantasy and wanted to write something a little more literary. So I'm working on selling that while she handles his other stuff. But if nobody else in the industry, I mean, in the agency represented it, we probably would tell him to either put it aside or self-publish it or think about making a move.
Yeah, and some people do have different agents for different types for different categories. So, for example, I don't do cookbooks. Nobody at our agency does cookbooks. And so we might not be the best people to sell cookbooks. And so maybe you want a cookbook agent in that regard. So.
Yeah, and my corgi and the toddler are playing right now. I believe in jumping genres. You know, some of my favorite YA authors do this all the time. If we're talking about YA folks, like Erin Bowman writes sci-fi westerns and fantasy novels. Mindy McGinnis writes contemporary dystopias, fantasy novels. Like, jump all over the place. You don't have to have a brand, in my opinion.
Well, that's true too. And I have clients who do like picture books and YA who are adult. Yeah. As long as I represent it, I'm open to it. Just the cookbook, I don't know. Maybe not the right fit.
All right. So just FYI for people asking in the questions, I'm trying to choose questions that I feel like will be a benefit to as many people as possible watching. So if it's very hyper specific to your project, I am passing those questions up for kind of more general questions, just an FYI. So, all right. Does self-publishing a previous manuscript, this is related to the previous question, affect an author's chances of getting his second book traditionally published?
No, I don't think so. I have a couple of authors who self-publish stuff before they went traditionally published. There's lots of hybrid authors out there. You're fine.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right.
That's an easy
Can
one.
you talk about the dreaded word, synopses? Do you request them and what helps make them effective?
Some editors want them, so sometimes I do have to ask my clients to provide them. I would say keep it to 3 pages at most. Some editors only want a 1-pager, some want more. If you're going to longer than 3 pages, it's probably too much.
Yeah. For me, a synopsis, when I ask for a synopsis, it's because I'm concerned there might be something fundamentally wrong in the book and with the story. So I'll ask just to see like what happens towards the end. Like, I don't want to get some surprise at the end where like, I don't know, everyone's a ghost or it was all a dream. Like I'm good. So I like to make sure I'm not setting myself up to read a 100,000-word book and be very upset.
I generally make it optional, at least as far as my query form goes. So I could have it or not. It doesn't make a huge difference to me unless I, have that feeling that something might surprise me. But for graphic novels specifically, I definitely want a full synopsis and I want an outline just because it's not going to be developed all the way. Usually you're submitting it as a proposal. So having a full picture of what it's going to look like is important for me.
So I don't like synopsises for me because I don't want to know the ending before I read it because I like to have the discovery as the new reader. And also, especially if it's something that's suspenseful or has a lot of twists, if I already know the end, then I'm not going to know what's not working. I'll miss that as a new reader. The one exception is a graphic novel, where I would want the synopsis. But otherwise, I personally don't, unless, like I said, an editor wants it, and then we work on it together. And 3 pages is good.
I did want to clarify because I know a lot of people get a little confused by the difference between a query and a synopsis. A synopsis is a different document that tells the entire plot, including the ending. So that's what we're talking about here.
I would say the other time when you need a synopsis is if you're going to do an IP project where the publisher is coming up with the concept and then they want you to write a synopsis or an outline of the story. That's when you'll have a full project outlined.
I will say, Eric, in response to yours, we did have one. I had one submission that I read for Pitch Wars that it was like this really fluffy, fun steampunk, and then like 60 to 70% of the way turned into this like really gruesome monster book. And ever since then, I request synopses because I'm like, I'm not doing that again.
That's so confusing.
Yeah. All right. Are you open to working with authors from other countries, authors who write English books, but their first language is not English?
Yeah.
I'll look at them. Yeah.
I have a client.
You have to read it.
Yeah. But I have a client in Sweden. I have a client in Australia. It's the time is a little interesting when we try to connect over Zoom or something, but other than that, no biggie.
Same, I have foreign clients. And I also have clients who live in the United States where English is a second language, and that's absolutely fine with me too.
Oh, interesting question from Caitlin. Can you estimate about how many queries you all get in a month? Do you have to schedule time to read them with all the other things you do?
Yes, we have to spend time reading them and build the time. I know about how many queries I get per month.
Yeah, it's a lot.
At least 100 a
Yeah.
month.
Yeah.
I probably get right now about 15 a day. Maybe more, maybe less.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I'm scrolling through looking for the next question. Sorry.
But it just, and I will say, actually, I'm getting more queries right now during the
yeah.
Absolutely.
People are home and they're writing and they're querying.
All right. How important is an online platform for a fiction writer? We talked earlier a little bit about nonfiction.
It's nice to have, in my opinion. Like it's a great way to interact with other authors. It's a great way to get buy-in from booksellers and librarians because they can look you up and see that you're not, a bad person. But it's not necessary to sell your book. I have quite a few fiction authors who joined Twitter after I signed them, and they still only have 100 followers, but we sold their books just fine.
I agree. I think the one thing about social media is that you have a professional presence, no matter what, even if it's just 100 followers. I think it's very easy. Social media can feel very conversational, especially if you're connecting with friends. But always know that it's a public platform, and even if you delete it, it's out in the world once you put it out there. So just be kind, don't trash talk, and be professional. I also think when I'm looking for people, it's always strange when they have weird profile pictures or weird names, and I can't quite tell who they are. Or just think about, you're putting yourself out there in the world, and you're representing yourself. And how do you want to represent yourself?
Yeah, and I think when if I'm interested in a query and I want to know more about this author, I might, look you up and see if you're on social media, see if you have a website. If I can't find anything, it is like a little interesting, but it's not necessarily a deal breaker.
I will definitely look you up, and
Yes.
I find you.
All right, we probably have time for maybe 2 or 3 more questions. So here's a question from Janice. If you don't like the first manuscript from an author, is it okay for the author to pitch a different manuscript?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew that would be a quick
yes. Although I would say for picture book readers, I would just space it out a little bit. So if you send me a picture book and it's not right for me, don't send me 5 more in the next 5 days. Take a breath, wait, and then send something to me, and at least give me a week.
Do literary agents care if the author's manuscript was professionally edited?
No.
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 No, but I do care if you are working with other writers and readers, that other people are reading your work, and that you're reading other people's work, that you're collaborating. I think it's important to have a critique group and not just write in a vacuum. And let me explain why that is. I feel like it's important because not only will you learn, not only is it important to get feedback about your own work, because we all will miss things that we think are on the page and isn't, but also it's really helpful to read other people's rough work, because you'll notice what's not working in their books. You'll see opportunities for improvement, and then all that work that you've done for them, you can then apply to your own writing. It's just a great way to improve your revision process, and I think it's so helpful. I'm very editorial, but I'm just my own one person with my finite experience, and I think it's important to have multiple eyes on your work. There are things I'm going to miss, and I want to know that you've got other resources.
All right, if someone wants to pitch a series to you, do they need to let you know it's a series, or should they plan to make the book a standalone? And if it's successful, then it can be made into a series.
I personally think that every book should read as a standalone. It should be a full book and not rely on the next book, because there's never a guarantee that that next book would come out, that we'd get even the first book out there. So I think it's just always a good idea to make sure that that first book stands on its own, just in case. If it is a planned series, you can always mention that in the query.
Yeah, the only exception to that would be chapter books. I want to know if you've got ideas for a series.
That's true.
Makes sense. All right, how do you keep up to date with the genre you support? Do you have time to read for pleasure?
I make time.
Yeah, you have to. It's your job.
Yeah.
I read a lot.
I've been really doing a lot of audiobooks lately too.
Oh, nice.
They're good for walking.
Yeah, they are.
I go in phases where I audio and then I don't audio.
Well, now that I have no life, I just walk. So, take an audiobook. So,
yeah, I guess it also depends. Like, I know when I go back to work, I'll have an hour commute one way. So that will be a lot of audiobooks getting listened to. But right now I'm not driving anywhere. So, all right. So that is all we have time for today. I did want to ask each of you to let us know where we can find you online. And so your wish list and also like your social media as well. So let's start with Jennifer.
AndreaBrownLit.com. This is very confusing. There are 4 Jennifers at our agency. I am number 4. I'm all the way at the bottom of the page when you look up the agents. I'm also on Twitter at March Soloway. But my wish list is on our website. But just briefly, I'm looking for a really good story, and you might have something that I've never thought of before, and it might be perfect for me. So if you like me and you think it'd be a good fit, try me.
You can find my wish list at jdlit.com. And then I'm on Twitter at AKA Weiss. And yeah, I'm actively looking for more stories right now, especially in the middle grade and young adult, just things that'll make me happy and just kind of an escape from what's going on right now.
you can find me at fuseliterary.com. That's FUSE literary.com. All my handles are also on my bio, and so is my wish list. I'm on Twitter at MICHRICHTER1. And I love crime fiction. I love women's fiction. I love stories with lots of family secrets. I love siblings, friendships, and, murder.
And you can find me at psliterary.com. That's where you can see where to submit and see our query box and all that good stuff. You can see my wish list on my website, ericsmithrocks.com, where I also have query letter guides, proposal guides, all kinds of good stuff. I get really detailed with what I want on my wish list and the stuff that I don't like. And Eric Smith Rocks is also my Twitter handle, so come say hi.
All right. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Thank you to the agents for answering everyone's questions. Really appreciate y'all taking the time to do this. It's great to see all of you. And you don't have to close out right now. I'll just end the broadcast and then I'll talk to you in just a second. So have a good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank you, Sarah.
It takes a second to end the broadcast. Sorry.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.